Every recap channel is celebrating right now. They're showing you the crowbar, the Oval Office, the blood. Butcher bringing it down on Homelander's skull over and over until there's nothing left, and everyone's cheering. The false god is dead. Justice is served. The monster got what he deserved. But here at DramaCrypt, we don't do the comfortable version. Because the uncomfortable truth, the one Vought International spent 5 seasons hiding from you, is this. Homelander was never the real villain of this story. Homelander was the most tragic, most broken, most genuinely pitiful victim in the history of television. Think about that for a second. The most powerful being on the planet, a man who could exit Earth's atmosphere in under 30 seconds. And in his final moments, after Kimiko stripped the compound V from his body with that radiation pulse, he sat on the floor of the Oval Office and sobbed like a frightened child. Why does an all-powerful god cry like that? Why does the thing that terrified an entire civilization end up bleeding and shaking and begging? Because that's what Vought built. Not a villain. A product. A weapon shaped like a man, with a child's emotional wiring still running underneath all that laser vision and invulnerability. The final battle wasn't a victory for good. It was a sadistic execution of a sick, traumatized person, while the actual villain, the old man in the expensive suit, quietly rearranged the furniture and turned the lights back on. So buckle up, because today we're breaking down what I'm calling the Milky Tragedy, and by the end of this, you're not going to be celebrating. You're going to be mourning. You want to understand Homelander? You gotta rip out the image of the laser-eyed tyrant first. Go back further, way further, back to the sterile fluorescent walls of Vought's Vogelbaum research lab. Homelander didn't have a crib. He didn't have a mother. There was no bedtime story, no one to hold him when it was dark. He was manufactured, his DNA spliced from Soldier Boy's genetic material, injected into an artificial womb, handed to scientists in lab coats. The only human touch he ever knew in those early years was the nurses holding him down while they pushed Compound V into his veins. He never had a single afternoon of actual childhood. And out of that isolation, that total crushing absence of warmth, came the psychological curse that the entire show was actually built around. The milk obsession. Now look, social media spent years making cheap jokes about Homelander and the milk. The cow scene, Madeline Stillwell, his fixation on nursing. Everyone called it a weird kink and moved on. But that's the shallow read, and it completely misses the point. The milk wasn't about sex. It was never about sex. It was about a child reaching back, desperately, pathologically, toward the one primal comfort that was stolen from him before he could even understand what he'd lost. A mother. Warmth. Pure, uncomplicated love that doesn't come with a contract. Every time Homelander sought out that specific intimacy, he wasn't being perverted. He was being 4 years old. He was trying to fill a void that Vought created on purpose, because a god who craves human approval is a god you can control. His narcissism, the god complex, the constant need to perform for cameras and be adored by crowds, all of it, every single bit of it, was just armor. Armor built by a terrified little boy who learned that if you act like you don't need love, the absence of it hurts slightly less. Vought engineered a being with the power to crack the planet in half, and then made absolutely sure he'd never feel secure enough to actually use it for himself. They needed him hungry. They needed him compliant. That was the real crime, and nobody got executed for it. Now let's stand right here, in the Oval Office, in the moment everyone called the greatest victory in the show's history. Kimiko hits Homelander with that nuclear radiation pulse, the ability she absorbed from Soldier Boy's cellular structure. And in that moment, the Compound V doesn't just weaken, it disappears, completely and permanently scrubbed from his bloodstream. In 1 second, the most powerful man alive becomes just a man. His skin tears now. His bones can break. His heart pounds with a fear it has never once felt before, the fear of actually dying. And then Billy Butcher picks up the crowbar. Here's what showrunner Eric Kripke forced you to sit with, whether you wanted to or not. Homelander doesn't fight back. He doesn't rally. He doesn't make some last heroic or villainous stand. He screams. He cries, like a child being beaten in a dark room. Butcher wasn't delivering justice in that moment. Butcher was caving in the skull of a helpless, terrified, depowered human being. That's not heroism. That's not even vengeance. That's just brutality. Blind, rage-fueled brutality from a man who'd already lost his own humanity long before the crowbar left his hands. The show played you perfectly. It made you wait 5 seasons for that payoff. 5 years of Homelander doing monstrous things, building up that rage in your chest, and then it gave you what you wanted and made you sick watching it. Because when it actually happened, it wasn't satisfying. It was just sad. It was just a broken person, stripped of everything, dying on camera while the whole world watched. And that was the second time Vought victimized him. First, they made him a weapon. Then, they discarded him when he became inconvenient, and let the world cheer while someone else did the disposal. Homelander died experiencing the one thing he spent his entire existence running from: human weakness. The monster didn't die. The mask did. And underneath it was just the scared kid from the lab. If you walked away from that finale thinking it was over, you weren't watching closely enough. While everyone was zoomed in on the dead god and the grieving heroes, one person was completely calm, adjusting his tie, reviewing documents, moving pieces. Stan Edgar. Let's be really clear about what actually happened in that finale. Butcher didn't defeat the system. In his final minutes, Butcher became the system's weapon. That biological tumor metastasizing through his body, it gave him the tools to tear Victoria Newman apart, literally in front of her daughter. And in doing so, he eliminated one of the last unpredictable variables Vought actually feared. The chaos of the finale didn't threaten Vought. It served Vought. They lost the old assets, Homelander, the increasingly volatile soups who'd gone off script. But the machine doesn't mourn its tools. It replaces them. And Stan Edgar walked back into the executive suite, straightened his cufflinks, looked into the cameras, and said something to the effect of, "This disorder has proven exactly why we need stronger oversight." That's the whole game right there. That sentence is the ending. Think about it for a second. How many of us are sitting in a corporate office, grinding away for a company that's draining the life out of us, yet we tell ourselves, "I'm lucky to have this job"? It's the same trap. Vought never needed Homelander to survive. They needed the market to survive. The super industry, the IP, the infrastructure, and with the old generation burned away by their own fire, the path to the next-gen lineup, the clean, manageable, PR-friendly new wave, was completely clear. The Boys was never a story about good versus evil. It was always a story about capitalism eating everything, including the monsters it creates, and regenerating itself from the wreckage without missing a single quarterly earnings call. The lights are still on in Vought Tower. The game is just starting over. At the end of all of it, what the Boys held up wasn't a superhero story. It was a mirror. A mirror showing us how powerful systems use our emotions, our fear, our anger, our desperate need for someone to blame, to keep themselves running. Homelander died broken, used twice, once to be built into a weapon, and once to be publicly discarded when the weapon got old. Butcher died a monster, consumed by the very violence he thought he was directing. And the single entity that never took a scratch? The corporation. So now it's your turn, DramaCrypt. After everything we just uncovered, after sitting with Homelander's actual backstory, after watching Stan Edgar waltz back to power while we were all distracted by the blood, I need to know where you stand. Do you have any sympathy left for Homelander after seeing what was done to him in that lab? And do you think there was any version of events where Butcher could have ended this without turning into the thing he hated most? Drop it all in the comments. And tell me, what do you think Stan Edgar has planned for the next generation? Because I don't think that door closed. I think it just opened wider. Hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell. Because we don't cover what happened. we cover what it means. DramaCrypt, we tell the truth, even when it stings. Peace.